So today we're going to talk about rhubarb. Now I have a few rhubarb plants here that actually I have three. Da-da! And I have a few more growing in the back on the back porch, which I started from seed. These ones I did not start from seed. The ones I start from seed this year are only about 2-3 inches high, and I'll show you what they look like. They're really difficult to start. They're actually not really difficult to start, but they take so long that it's easy to forget them. And if you forget them, obviously they dry out and then they die. So not all of the ones I started from seed have survived. This one looks pretty good. I wanted to make sure that they were tall, they weren't saggy, they're nice and green, they look like they're healthy, they've got enough sun. That's really important, not that they've been inside for a really long time, they haven't gotten any sun, they're kind of on the yellow side. I wanted them green and I wanted them stocky or strong. Okay, so if your plant is going to stay in one place for the next 20 years, you want to dig a hole that's about 2 feet deep and 2 feet across. In that hole, you want to put bone meal, you want to put compost, and you want to put well-rotted, it's called vintage manure. Preferably cow or horse, but something like alpaca would also do really, really well. Now, in my case, I don't want to plant these for the next 20 years. This is kind of my nursery bed right here. It's just outside the new studio. I want to be able to see it. I'm looking for something that's going to fill in this space, and I don't eat a lot of rhubarb. What I do want to tell you about rhubarb in terms of eating is don't pick it the first year. Don't even pick it the second year. When you do harvest your rhubarb, make sure you only harvest half of the plant at a time. Never take more than half, or you'll tax the actual roots, you'll tax the crown, and it'll be too much for it, and then the next year it might not produce very much at all. So that's very important. So what I've done is, instead of planting them 2 to 3 feet apart and waiting 5 years for them to get huge, they're still really small. I'm going to plant them relatively close. They're about 2 feet apart in a little triangle here, and I've dug the hole down about 1.5 feet. I've got a whole container here of manure, and I'm going to add the manure in the bottom, put the rhubarb on top, backfill with more manure, then put all this soil on top of that, and then I'm going to leave it. Now what I am doing, before I do anything, and no matter what I'm growing, I always do this. I have water running. So I've got a hole here, a little hole over there, and they're all full of water right now. So actually I can go ahead and turn that water off. And I want to let these fill up with water, and then I want to let the water sink through. And that is just going to prepare my soil. So when I put these in, they will be good and soaked, and I won't have to worry about the root ball ever drying out, the water never getting down there. Anytime you plant anything, no matter what it is, fill the hole with water first, put your plant in, and then plant it, and just let that water seep right through the way it normally would. So I'm just dumping them in. This is a lot of manure. All the way in. Okay, now I know the soil that I've got underneath here is really sandy. It's more of it's sand, really. Sand with a tiny bit of dirt mixed in. So it's actually good because the manure is on the top and the sand is underneath. So when it does rain, these will be fast draining. Now they're not as fast as they probably should be, but they're pretty good. So they're full. I've filled all 3 holes with the compost. Now I'm going to dig it out a little bit, put my rhubarb in on top, and then I'm going to go ahead and backfill and pat it in. So how you get the rhubarb out of the plant? Put your hand, just open your fingers, put your hand across, turn it over, give it a little pat if you need to, sometimes a little shake, sometimes pinching helps, especially if it's in a plastic pot like this. If it's in one of the terracotta pots, if you've grown it yourself and it's a terracotta pot, you can push your finger through the little hole, the little drainage hole in the bottom. Okay. I also want to gently, now you don't have to do this, but I like to just tease some of these roots out, and that also means maybe pulling some of the roots off so that the plant isn't going to be root bound once it gets in there. I know it looks a little aggressive, but it's fine. So that's what I'm after. Now I'm going to move this stuff around and slip it right in. And then I want to backfill and give it a good pressing in. I also want to make a tiny little ditch So when I do water, the water actually stays in here and it doesn't just flow down the hill. Now that it's in, I'm going to give it a little more water. And we'll just let that sink in. There's not very much on top, but I want to make sure that the soil is wet on top as well. And now let's move on to the second one. So something else to think about is if you have rhubarb plants, you want to dig them up and divide them once every 5 years in order to keep them happy and to not let them overcrowd themselves, because they do get pretty big. So I have a rhubarb down by the barns, and I'll show you that in a minute. And I won't dig it up now because it's the wrong time. It really needs to be done in fall when the season is over, when the plant has gone dormant. But I will have to do that this fall, because obviously if you want to continue to have a good plant, you don't want the plant to overcrowd itself. Okay, so my rhubarb are in and I am happy, and they look pretty happy too, and I don't need to come back and do anything with them at all for quite some time. In fact, about 5 years. I can leave them alone. I will not be harvesting on the first year or the second year. Covered in dirt, aren't I? And in 5 years I'll want to transplant it, I want to take it up, cut it up and divide it at least in half, and make sure that there are at least 2 eyes, so 2 bumps where it will potentially grow out of, and then replant it. So each section should have at least 2 pieces. Depending on the size and how long it takes, I could divide it into more. So I'll see you in a few years when I get around to dividing that one, but actually this fall I'm going to divide the one on the other side of the garden. So let's go over there now, and I'll just show you quickly how big it is and what's going on. And I'm actually letting that one go to seed, so it's kind of exciting. Okay, so this is the rhubarb that needs to be divided. It is huge. See how ridiculously big it's gotten. They're just beautiful leaves, right? This is my hand on that leaf. And these are the seeds. So I've let it go to seed this year because I want to collect these little guys. Now I had some from last year, but these are going to be really, really fresh. And they're pretty neat. They're little triangles. So I will be out here collecting these seeds. Maybe I should put a little bag over them. And later in the fall, I will dig up this entire plant, go down here to the crown, and give it a good trim, because it's become a little too big, and when it gets big like this, it no longer produces lots of stalks. It just becomes monster huge. So definitely needs a little bit of cutting back. Thanks for watching. I'm Scarlett. I hope you enjoyed this quick little episode on how to plant rhubarb. Don't forget to subscribe, give me a thumbs up, all those good things, and I'll see you in the next episode. Toodaloo! Oh, and tell me what you're growing. What are you growing this year that you are very excited about? Bye.